what that is.
Start again.
It's 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, and we all know what that is, a live stream behind Breaking Bond. And I know I'm always hyping up, oh, this is going to be a riveting one, but really, seriously.
This is super riveting.
Yeah, this is unprecedented. For the first time, we've been doing the ongoing series Breaking Bond for more than a year now, probably about a year and a half by now, right?
I think a year and 183 days.
Oh, shut up.
Precise.
Introduce yourself.
Andy Kahan, Director of Victim Services, Victim Advocacy, Crime Stoppers of Houston.
And for the first time ever, you've heard me ask repeatedly for a criminal district court judge to come join us on Behind Breaking Bond to say whatever they want to give some insight on the situation. And joining us is 482nd Criminal District Court Judge Maritza Antu.
That's right.
Thank you so much for being
You're
here.
welcome. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about yourself.
I am the judge of the 42nd Criminal District Court. This is a brand new court. I was appointed by Governor Abbott last year, October of 2021. Prior to that, I was a prosecutor for 12 years, trying some of the most violent defendants in our city. And then I started my own practice in 2016, where I worked primarily with reintegration court, which involves offenders in need of drug rehabilitation and mental health help.
How did you end up? I mean, how do you feel about being a judge?
You know, I certainly didn't think this opportunity would.
How did that come about, actually? I mean, you're in your own practice and all of a sudden, I mean, you know, I'll say this just because someone say, hey, we're looking for a judge, or, I mean, how did this?
Sort of. The court was created by the legislature September 1st.
And that was to kind of ease the docket situation?
Right. It was an assist by our legislators to help with the criminal backlog that we all hear so much about.
Right.
So it was created September 1st. It required the appointment by the governor because it's a brand new court. There's an application process. I really thought long and hard about it. And at the end of the day, I've been a public servant the majority of my career. And this is the ultimate public service job. I also know I have the experience, and I thought it would be challenging and different. And so I interviewed with the governor's office, and he called me about 2 weeks later and said, it's yours if you want it.
What did you say?
I was shocked, frankly. I think I told the person that called me, are you serious? And she said, oh, of course I am. I wouldn't joke about something like this. And my husband and my sister, who's an assistant district attorney in Fort Bend County, were there during the call. So, you know, they're looking at me like, say yes. And it's been a whirlwind ever since then.
Is it what you thought it was going to be like, or no?
No. I certainly didn't understand the administration portion of it. There's so much more that people don't see. I think the impression most people have is you go to court, you have a docket, and then you go to lunch. And I think till this day, I've been to lunch once in the last 7 months. In fact, I haven't had lunch today, and it's 3 o'clock. So there's a lot.
I gave you some gum, though, right?
Yeah, you did. You gave me some cheeklets, actually, not just any gum. Cheeklets.
Special.
It's special. I'm a girl from McAllen, Texas, and I'm familiar with cheeklets and the border and where they're sold.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that goes behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of, but it's made me an incredibly well-rounded lawyer, and I am so grateful for the opportunity.
A couple of weeks ago, you and a couple of other judges were at a town hall meeting, and I can't remember, you were asked to describe, I don't know if philosophy is the correct term, but do you remember what you said? Yes. It was great, but go over that again for us.
The question was, what is your judicial philosophy?
Yeah.
And my response was, I am a conservative judge. I believe in law and order. I believe in accountability. And I don't believe the bench is a place from which to seek political or social change. I think our jobs as judges is to follow the law as it is written and only follow it as it is written. not to make new laws or deviate from the written law.
Now, we all know about the Constitution that everyone, and rightfully so, should be given a bond. Everybody has the right to a bond, except if you're a capital murder defendant. And also, too, can you say no to a bond based on someone's criminal history if they were deemed a habitual offender? If I was a
So
habitual
Randy
offender,
Wallace had 7 prior ag robbery convictions, and then I'm talking about convictions, not actual charges.
yeah.
Convictions, and then he was charged with, let's say, another violent crime, and he comes before the bench. I guess the question would be, what are your options or discretion as a judge when it comes to granting bond to a defendant with a career habitual violent offender?
So one of the things I will say is that a senior judge friend of mine, who's very wise, said to me, remember, you are like a peg that is moved. The state will file a motion that will move me, and then the defense may file a motion that may move me. That means that if a particular case comes before me, the state of Texas has to file a motion for me to consider and grant a hearing on if the state of Texas believes they have a basis to hold this defendant at a no bond. The reason it requires a hearing, of course, is because people should not be held in custody without a bond, without due process.
So when that happens, who decides? Do you decide, okay, we're going to have a hearing next Thursday, or does the state? What happens after you get a motion like that?
So I always address the motions. That's the first thing I look for on every case that comes before me. I look for a motion. Did the state file a motion? What is the motion asking me to do? Based on that, I will grant them a hearing if that's what the motion is requesting. We set it for a hearing, and they've got to prove what their basis is for holding a defendant at a no bond. If they prove it, I grant it. If they can't prove it, then we get into the subject of having to set a number bond.
What do you mean by a number of bonds?
So what I mean by that is judges, as I said in the town hall, we are, the buck stops with us, I guess is my point. And what I mean by that is we as judges set a bond amount.
Yeah.
And you heard me say in the town hall, I take accountability and responsibility for the bonds that I set every day. I don't finger point. It boils down to me. And I make the decision considering factors that the law requires me to follow. That's how I decide on the bond amount.
One of the things that got real confusing with this whole, everybody thought basically that you had to have 10% of the bond amount to be able to bond out. And then we started hearing how a few bonding companies weren't considering that. But when you go into it, do you think about that part of it, or should that matter, or does it matter?
It's not an enumerated factor that the law says I have to consider. So I'll give you some examples. The defendant's ability to make the bond is a factor I have to consider. The safety of the community and the safety of the victim are factors I have to consider. Aggravating factors of the offense, meaning of the case.
Sure.
Consider that. I look at all those factors every single time I set a bond. Some facts might have me weigh some factors more than the others because not every case is the same and not every defendant is the same.
Let's say that you've granted me 2 bonds. Okay, I'm in your court on 2 felony bonds. I show up there again. Do you have the legal authority to look at me and say, Randy Wallace, you've violated bond twice. You don't get another bond. Can you do that as the judge?
Not without the state's motion.
The state has to decide.
Remember, I'm a peg.
Right. Yeah, you're not really making any decision from what you say. It's you're hearing it from both sides.
Correct.
Then you're determining what to do.
That's right. The state would then say, Judge, we have filed a motion showing that, everybody in my court has conditions of bond. If you violate a condition of my bond, which is don't commit a new crime.
Which is a condition of everybody's bond, right?
I can't speak for everybody else. I don't know.
I would hope so.
I don't know. I could just tell you what goes on in my
Sure,
court.
right, of course.
And so the prosecutor would say, there's an allegation that the defendant violated a condition of your bond not to pick up a new case. And I say, okay, let's have a hearing to see if you can prove that. And of course, they know what they need to do.
Right.
If they in fact prove that the defendant was on a condition of my bond, violated the condition of my bond, we have a hearing. And then I make the determination what happens to the bond.
Would you consider yourself kind of strict or no? Or how would you describe yourself as a judge?
You know, if you knew me, and people around the courthouse have always said two things about me. She is tough, but fair. So I'm tough because I give you the expectations I tell you to meet, and I give you the rules. And I'm fair because if you follow the consequences of those, there's no going back. What I mean by that is I learned about accountability very early on in my life. And that's one of the things that drives me as a lawyer, when I was a lawyer, as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, as a mom, as a wife. I am accountable for all of my actions. And people that come before me in court understand that. I give you the benefit of the doubt. I give you an opportunity. But if you don't abide by my rules, then there are consequences.
I don't want you to point the finger at any other judge or anything like that, but this is what I don't understand about what we've been seeing in the last couple of years. I've been a reporter for a long time.
How long?
Too long. There were not instances in the past where someone could have 6, 8, 10, 12 bonds. I mean, it didn't happen, did it?
No, because we never did stories on it.
Right.
And I'm sure you as a prosecutor probably, saw cases of someone out on bond and saying, no, this, we're not going to let this happen,
I mean, there might have been instances where, under certain circumstances, maybe somebody had 2, maybe they had 3. But when you start getting up to 8, 10, 12, 14, and then we've seen more than 170 times, correct, where someone out on multiple bonds went on to allegedly kill someone. I mean, that's not something that happened in the past.
I think that you're right. It wasn't a common thing that was happening in our county. I do remember when I was a prosecutor, we used to have these long yellow files. And if somebody was charged with a new offense and they were on bond, you would rubber band that file. You would put a sticky note for the chief prosecutor to review it. It was certainly a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other side of that. We weren't having the required hearings that the law required us to have. And that is something that I'm very grateful for that has changed in our system. Defendants are entitled to due process. And that is in the form of a hearing for the state to prove allegations that they've made.
Sure.
I mean, as citizens, we deserve that.
Yeah.
Right? The number of times, of course, I can't deny that was not common in the past. I don't know why. I don't know what the answer to that is. I can just tell you that it wasn't happening as common as it is now.
Let me ask you this. So we get this brand new court, finally, the first actual new court in 40 years. And that's, another issue that's obviously going to be addressed. What's it like to go into something? I mean, you have to basically start from scratch.
Yes.
I mean, how did that, you walk in and going, okay, I'm the judge, now what?
So nobody teaches you how to be a judge. I will say that. We have judges school and you learn the things that will get you in trouble, but nobody says, by the way, these are the things you do daily. And some of the judges I practiced under or practiced before made it look so easy. I mean, these people had 30 years plus experience. People don't understand how I got my cases.
How did you get them?
Every court randomly gave up 100 of their cases. And so I inherited 100 cases from everybody.
Everything across the board.
Everything and anything.
Yeah, sure.
Anything. Any type of felony was transferred to my court.
And it was all just like a luck of the draw or whatever, right? It was, yeah.
Yes, it was a luck of the draw. It was a random assignment of cases that I received. Now, Was I able to review all 2,444 cases? No, of course not.
Right.
So I do it daily as they come before me. I review the conditions of bond. I review the bond. I review anything that's happening to the case to make sure that it's according to my standards, because everybody's different. Every judge is independent.
Well, since you kind of inherited all of these, do you still get, like every judge is getting new cases all the time, do you still get new
Yes.
cases on top of that?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Every day we get what's called the PIA, which is the initial appearance of a defendant in
Yeah.
court. It doesn't prevent me from getting cases, unfortunately, but yeah, it's like it's a fear that I have, and I would be lying if I didn't tell you that. As a prosecutor, you make decisions instantly, within seconds. Sometimes you have to make them on the spot, and you pray and you hope that it's the best informed decision you can make. You don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
I do the same as a judge. My fear is, something happening that's on my conscience for the rest of my life. And so I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict what somebody might or might not do, but I do the best I can with the information that I have at the moment. And I'm conscientious of the fact that one of the factors that I consider is the safety of my community.
This is going to sound like a stupid question, but why is that so important to you?
Well, my brother, when I got hired by Chuck Rosenthal, I was about to be a baby new number 3 prosecutor, and it was in the summer. And my brother was 19 at the time, and he called me where I was at the time, and he was the victim of a home invasion. He was held at gunpoint. He was bound and gagged for several hours where he lived, and my parents were out of the country. I drove down in the middle of the night, horrified and scared, to be there for him, and nobody helped us. The police didn't help us. I was trying to figure out, how do I file a report? What do I do?
Yeah.
And it turned out to be that I was able to locate my brother's phone, and the alleged perpetrators were wearing his clothes. And, that experience really stuck with me. The importance of people and what they experience and what they feel, and how my brother felt, and how I felt, that's important to me. Just like the accused, it's the same on both sides of the coin.
And we've always said, and we use an example, some of the young defendants, and I'm sure you see a lot of young defendants, and that's got to be disheartening seeing 19, 20, 18 that are continually being brought before you on a lot of times some really violent cases. And you're 19, and that you pretty much, for a lot of these guys, their life is pretty much over if they're convicted, honest. And that's just, to me, that's just a horrible feeling for both sides.
Yeah, it's almost like if they would have been better off by being in jail, because like Andy was saying, it's almost like they end up in this huge hole. They've got multiple felony charges, and you just kind of think, how are they ever going to kind of dig out of the hole? And
it's certainly disheartening, and it's discouraging, because we live here. This is our community. And we want young people to succeed. We want them to be successful. We want them to provide things for our community that we don't have. And every single person in my courtroom, I treat with the utmost respect. I treat them with dignity that I would want to be treated with. I listen. I'm fair. I make them feel like they are important to me, because they are. Every single person, whether they're the defendant or the victim in my courtroom, is very important to me. That's why I work so many hours.
And you were recently, if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Commissioner's Court was discussing clearance rates, of course, and I believe they brought up the 482nd as far as having the highest clearance rate.
Yeah, so far,
that's
it's
great.
been the first or the second highest backlog clearance rate.
What do you attribute that to?
Accountability. I ask a lot of questions. As a chief prosecutor, I ran a court for 4 years. I know the importance of moving a docket. Moving a docket means victims get closure, or defendants who are wrongfully accused get justice.
Yeah.
I mean, it works for everybody.
Right.
I ask a lot of questions of all the parties in my court, and I work really goddamn hard. I also have the experience to not be snowed by lawyers.
Yeah.
I know when they tell me something, I know whether, it's 100% the truth.
It's almost like you've got the ball up in the air and you're keeping it in continuous motion, right? I mean, you're like,
Consistently, constantly, decisions that I make happen very quickly. And lawyers are very busy. I mean, you know that the lawyers in Harris County are overwhelmed, just like everybody is
Yeah.
with the backlog. It spills into every other aspect of our criminal justice system. So I try to be as efficient as I can with the information that I've got. But these decisions, I invite anybody to come watch me in court during docket.
and they can, anybody that goes in a courtroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is an open courtroom. It is the public's courtroom. I serve at the behest of the citizens of Harris County. They are always welcome in my courtroom, anytime,
Even
any day.
Randy Wallace.
Even
Well, she didn't say
Randy.
that.
I'm putting it on the spot right now. So
Anybody.
one thing that Randy and I have said, bail people out on bond, especially for violent crime, it wasn't meant to be for 3, 4, 5
It's a short
years.
period of
It
time,
wasn't
right?
meant to
Yeah.
be this elongated time period where, the longer you're out, something could happen that you violate, right? So that's what, and that's why I think moving the docket and getting the court backlog is horrific. We all know that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to, as you say, keep everything flowing and moving. And we certainly commend you for that.
And no one is, for the backlog of the docket. I mean, come on, we had a hurricane, we had Harvey, we had a pandemic. I mean, it's understandable how that happened. It's just kind of getting in there and
Rolling up your sleeves.
right.
And
Work.
just
Yes.
working and, trying cases. I'm in trial every week. When lawyers know that you will go to trial, both the state and the defense evaluate their cases accordingly. If the state can't prove a case, they dismiss it. If the defense knows they can't win, they will plead it.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so simple. I'm making it sound more simple than it is, but it really just boils down to that.
Yeah.
I don't have a secret. I don't have.
And that's,
Not doing anything.
that part of it, that's not your decision either, right? That's, the state would go to the defense and say, hey, we're going to offer Randy Wallace 5 years if he pleads, but all of that is done between them, and then you basically sign off on it.
Right. That has nothing. The plea bargaining has nothing to do with it.
Right, yeah.
But you also, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, you can also basically say, no more resets. We've had enough reset, because that's all we've heard
Yeah.
for particular some elected. That's what a lot of just keep saying reset.
Right.
Reset. You have the ability to say, no more resets.
How is that determined? Does like the defense of the state, they come to you and they say, what, we need more time, and then,
It's just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if a case is older than a year old in my court, that's the definition of a backlog case. Anything over 365 days. So if your case is over 365 days, the lawyers know they have to approach me, and then I say, what's going on with the case? Oh, we're still missing a body camera. Okay, state, when was it requested? Defense, what else are you missing? What evidence do you need to evaluate your case? State, what's taking so long? And then I make those notes. So if you come back to me again, you can't give me the same
no.
answer that you gave me previously, because I just gave you 4 weeks to solve that problem.
Right.
So, at some point it becomes, okay, there's an offer, discovery is complete.
Yeah.
It's time to set it for trial.
You're not going to let them give you the same, oh, my dog ate it, time and time again. You're going to say, hey, I've heard that, and we need to move this along. So,
Right.
yes.
You either plead it, or they dismiss it, or you set it for trial. And look, this is not something that these are expectations of myself too.
Right.
When I was a prosecutor and when I was a defense attorney, I worked tirelessly to figure out if my case could be moved within 4 or 5 court settings. So it's not like I'm doling out these expectations that I never followed myself.
Right. You know that it's feasible and realistic because you did it yourself.
Right. And I know that there are some exceptions, like body cameras are incredibly important to the defense.
Sure.
And those take time. And I understand that. And so through my experience, I know that that is true. You know, a lot of cases can be resolved through the body camera. So I just listen. I listen for the answer. I weigh it with what I think, and then I move from there.
It sounds like you take a real kind of common sense approach to it.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Just
it's
very simple, very common sense. I mean, there's no, again, I'm not doing anything that's magical or I think the lawyers would agree that I'm respectful of everyone. I treat everybody fairly. But I do ask a lot of questions, and it goes back to the accountability.
right.
But they know coming into your court now that you will ask questions, so they have to be prepared.
Right. It's like doing your homework,
Yeah.
right? You go to a teacher that you know is going to give you a pop quiz. You're probably more prepared than if she wouldn't give you pop quizzes.
Now, what are you in the November election, or what happens next year? How long is your appointment? You are.
So I am on the ballot in November of this year.
Yeah.
And so I will face a challenger, and the great citizens of Harris County will decide who to vote for.
It's sort of difficult to be a judge and to also play politics. I mean, but you have to do that. You're not, judges here aren't appointed. I mean, people get to pick them, which is good.
Yes.
It's a good thing that we, as a community, as a city, get to vote on judges.
Of course. I mean, it's important for the citizens to have who they want on the bench. And, politics doesn't play in my daily life, how I make decisions. It has nothing to do with that. But unfortunately, I have to be affiliated with the party in order to get on the ballot.
No, and as I've always said, none of the victims that I've dealt with for 30 years, none of them cared whether they were a Republican, Democrat, Independent. They were a victim of a crime and they want their fair say. They didn't care what their party affiliation
Right.
Right.
It's never been.
Yeah, and this whole taking up an extensive look at the whole idea of having repeat violent offenders on multiple bonds, that was not a political thing at all for me or for Fox 26 or for Andy. It was a public safety issue. And I'm not telling anybody how they should vote or how they should think, but I'm telling the public that this has happened. And it's public documents. Court documents are all public documents, right?
They are. They are public documents. I think it's important. I hold myself accountable for everything that I do in my court. Will I make mistakes? Maybe. I'm sure. I'm human. But I go back to I will make the best informed decisions that I can.
You make the call you think is right.
Yeah.
And then you just pray for the best.
Yeah.
It's got to be a very difficult job. I mean, most of us, you watch TV and it's like, I want to be the judge. I want to sit there and tell everybody what to do. I want to be the boss. It's nothing like that at all.
It's not. It's really not. It's people's lives are in your hands every day. And I weigh that. It weighs on me very heavily. I think about it all the time. I think, how would I want to be treated if I were in this courtroom on both sides? And I take it very seriously, like everything else I've done in my career. I know that that's how my parents raised me.
Very good.
You're going to get some more gum.
I
got more.
Yeah, the cheeklets are back from my childhood.
That's
These
all
are
it
childhood,
takes. Anybody's
childhood
welcome.
candy.
I have candy. I have everything.
This is the segment is called Breaking Bond. So not to pin you on any case or anything like that, but if somebody comes up and they do have a rap sheet, as long as you're out, what goes through your mind? What would a judge do with somebody who is multiple bond, multiple felon?
I ask a lot of questions. Something that happens that people might not be familiar with is sometimes cases are filed as warrants. Okay.
Yeah.
So a case might have happened in December of 2021, but but it was never filed until May 2nd of 2022.
Right,
And if a person is on a felony bond,
right.
that case, the new case might not have predated the case that he's on bond or she on bond.
Yeah,
for.
and yeah, we have found instances of that where, let's say that you let me out on bond in April, and then the police connect me to a crime that I allegedly committed last November.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, that
And
we
we've
see that.
excluded, yeah, we
happens.
made.
Yeah, that does happen. Yeah,
And so I ask a lot of questions, from the state and from the defense. I want
Yeah.
everyone to be heard. And so I ask a lot of questions about that.
yeah. Well, like Andy was pointing out, through researching the breaking bond reports, we don't like if Raymond was out on bond and Raymond got charged with murder and he was out on one bond.
Always uses you.
Hey, you noticed
Yeah,
that?
look how sketchy he looks, right? Raymond would not be on breaking bond because he only had one. He was out on one bond and he picked up a murder charge on one bond. That we could do how many stories like that? I mean, a lot, but that's not what we've looked into, and that's not what we're trying to make the public aware of. What do you want everybody to know about you being a judge? Well, hopefully you'll come back before the election, but right now, tell the folks out there why they should vote for you come November.
I think I've proven myself to be a hard worker, whether or not you want that in a judge. The experience that I have is incredibly helpful to making the informed decisions that I've talked about every single day. I've been on both sides of the fence. I've done both jobs. I've stood on both sides of the bar. I understand the plights of both the victims and the accused. So far, I have the 5th lowest docket. Not through magic, through blood, sweat, and tears every single day. I miss my kids' things. I miss family things because this is important to me. I was put in this position to do my job, and I will continue to do it every single day as hard as I can, as best as I can, every single day. If that's what the citizens of Harris County want, then they should vote for me. If not, then they shouldn't vote for me. But it doesn't get more simpler than that.
Judge Antu, thank you so much for joining us. And I've said repeatedly, we want other judges to come on here. I did not ask you to talk about a specific case, did I?
Nope, I cannot do that.
Right, and
You didn't ask. That's for the record. Right.
But we understand that, and we don't expect any criminal district court judge or candidate to come on here and talk about the case they're trying, or even a case that's disposed of. We don't want to go there with you. We want to give everyone the opportunity to come here and tell us about themselves, why they're a judge, their philosophy being a judge. It's open to everyone, and thank you so much for being here.
And if you tell me what your favorite candy is, I will have it.
Is that a bribe?
That's not a bribe. No, there's no quid pro quo.
There you go. Hey, thank you all so much
Should we
for
do
joining
anything
us.
tonight?
Yeah, and be sure to watch Breaking Bond on tonight's 9 p.m. newscast. Thank you so much for caring about this issue and watching. We appreciate it.